We hear all the time that youth violence is a problem of crime and punishment. But what if that's completely the wrong way to look at it? Today, we're diving into a framework that reframes the entire issue, not as some kind of moral failure, but as a public health crisis, one that you can actually diagnose, treat, and, most importantly, prevent. This right here is the central question. The big one the Sankofa framework asks us all to think about. Is youth violence a crime that we just need to punish? Or is it a symptom of something much, much deeper going on in a community? You'll see how we answer this one question pretty much determines everything that follows, whether we stay stuck in a cycle of punishment or we actually move toward a future of healing. So, if we want to find a real, lasting solution, we first have to totally re-examine the problem itself. And that means shifting our whole mindset away from just reacting and punishing and moving toward a strategy that's all about proactive prevention. And that brings us to the core metaphor of the Sankofa framework. It suggests a pretty radical shift. Let's stop looking at violence as just a series of bad choices and instead start treating it like a public health issue, a disease, if you will, with specific diagnosable causes that we can actually treat. This quote from the source material is so crucial. It's basically saying that violence doesn't just appear out of thin air. It isn't random. So, okay, if it's not spontaneous, then what is it the result of? Well, first up, we have unaddressed trauma. The source material is really clear on this. So many kids are carrying the heavy weight of dysfunction at home, violence in their neighborhoods, and trauma that's been passed down for generations. If that's never healed, it just consistently raises the odds of aggression and getting caught up in the justice system. The second cause? Intense economic pressure. I mean, when there aren't many legal ways to make it, young people are often pushed to respond to that stress in ways that can lead to destructive behavior. It's not an excuse, it's about survival. And the third piece of this puzzle is what the framework calls a fractured identity. The argument here is that when young people don't really know who they are or where they come from, when that connection to their history has been cut, it can actually lead to a kind of self-hatred. And that makes it a whole lot easier to see someone else, not as a brother or sister, but as an enemy. The framework also zooms in on these really critical high-risk windows. Research shows that those hours right after school lets out are some of the most vulnerable. Idle time isn't neutral, When there aren't positive, structured programs, that vacuum often gets filled by negative influences. Okay, so if violence is the disease and we've just diagnosed its root causes, what's the cure? This is where we get into the Sankofa framework itself. It's a whole treatment plan designed to heal the community from the inside out. And it's so important to understand where this framework comes from. It was created by Jawar Hakeem Sankofa, who's a descendant of Seattle's very first Black pioneers. This isn't just some abstract theory from a university. It's a solution born directly from lived experience, from within the very community it's meant to serve. And that is so key. And here we are again, back at that core public health idea. Think about it. An emergency response, like what a paramedic does, is absolutely vital. It stops the bleeding. But it doesn't cure the illness that caused the emergency in the first place. The Sankofa framework says the real cure is in things like community infrastructure, trauma care, and real opportunity. You can really see the two different ways of thinking laid out side by side here. The old way is all about reaction, punishment, and blame. The Sankofa model flips that script entirely to focus on prevention, healing, and, this is a big one, collective responsibility. All right, so what does this cure actually look like in the real world? Let's break down the core pillars of the Sankofa framework. This is the Sankofa prescription. It's a full multi-step plan. Step 1, tackle those vulnerable after-school hours with guaranteed productive activities. Step 2, set up these central community resource hubs to act as anchors of support. Step 3, make sure there's accessible, trauma-informed mental health care to actually start that healing process. Step 4 gets into that crucial piece about restoring identity and self-knowledge. And finally, Step 5 ties it all together with mentorship that's based on real accountability. See? It's not just one thing. It's a whole ecosystem of support. So let's zoom in on these community resource hubs for a second, because the framework is super specific. These are not just places for kids to hang out. They are true development hubs. We're talking tutoring, financial literacy, real job training, and pathways to careers, all while being a safe, stigma-free space for counseling. It's the whole shebang. Now, here's something that makes this framework really stand out. its deep focus on identity. And to be clear, this isn't about religion or anything like that. It's about self-knowledge. The programs include things like researching your family tree, learning culturally grounded history, and connecting generations through mentorship, all so young people can connect to their own story. And this quote right here really nails the why behind that focus, particularly for foundational Black American youth. In a society that has, for a long time, fragmented Black identity, this work is all about restoration. It's about building a powerful sense of self-worth and pride, which, as we know from tons of research, is a huge tool for resilience. So, as we start to pull all of this together, it really comes down to a choice, doesn't it? We can keep reacting after the damage is already done, or we can choose a different path, one that invests in the health of a community right from the ground up. This quote really gets to the heart of the whole thing. The point of the Sankofa framework isn't to point fingers or assign blame for the past. It's about taking collective responsibility for the future. It's a forward-looking call to action, focused on building a community where every single young person has the support they need to not just survive, but to actually thrive. So I'll just leave you with this. Beyond any single program, the Sankofa framework challenges all of us to ask a really big question. What does a true, deep, long-term investment in a community's future actually look like? And what is our role in helping to build it?